Hey guys, Adam here. This is going to be a bit of a special because on the 15th of April, which at the time of this recording is 2 days from now, it's on the Monday, EA Sports is going to show off its initial features that it's going to be bringing out for NHL 14. Me being Canadian and a diehard hockey fan, I've been pretty big into NHL 13. And naturally, because NHL 13 is a really terribly done game, I have a massive list of things that I love them to put into the next game. So this is going to be an entire wish list of what I'm just praying that they put in NHL 14. So we're going to divide this into categories. The first one is the one that's the closest to me, and that's the EA Sports Hockey League and online team play. Most of this is going to have to do with EA SHL the most, though. The first and foremost thing is the matchmaking still needs to be improved. There are still very, very terrible matchups that are given, especially to teams that are in the amateur division. And that's pretty much the one division where it means the most. For those who don't understand the EA Sports Hockey League, there are three leagues. There are amateur, pro, and elite. Amateur being the lowest tier, pro being in the middle, and elite being on top. And the way that these three divisions work, it depends on how many games you play on top of your winning record. So guys who play, say 250 games and are winning, let's say 170 of them, they'll be elite easily. The problem with that setup is that there are games where teams that have played 200 games and have won 150 of them will play teams that have played 10 games and have lost 9 of them. And it's at the point where it doesn't make any sense how you can say you have fair matchmaking and yet there are games like that come out and it makes teams that are, let's be honest, not good enough, they have a really big disadvantage going into the game because they're playing guys that are not only experienced but guys who know the ins and outs of the games, which includes all the loopholes, glitches, and easy shots. They also know how to make certain plays, how to work the AI better, how to work, how to really play a team into their hands. And I know people have given the argument that, in the NHL, the best team eventually does end up playing the worst team. But in the NHL, in the real NHL, a team at the most in 81 games, say the best and the worst team in hockey can play, the matchup would still be a team that's won, let's say, 52 games over a team that's won 14. It's a huge difference when you're talking about a team that's played 250 games, won 200 of them, and a team that's played 15 games and only won 2. It's still a huge difference. So it doesn't apply in the same method. The other reason that matchmaking needs to be improved is because in playoffs, which is supposed to be a divisional thing, you're only supposed to play teams that finish in your division at the end of the month. There have been so many occasions where we have been in other leagues and we've been playing teams that are not in that same division. So it tells me that when the playoffs come in, that there is no actual protocol in between it. They literally just play a random team. Another thing that needs to be done is more customization. And that applies to logos, especially logos, because, you only get the NHL logos, a few classic NHL logos, and then the really stupid, logos that EA Sports provides, the random custom ones like or the $1 million bill or something stupid like that. You can't use AHL logos. You can't use Junior Hockey League logos from the CHL. You can't use the European logos. Hell, you can't even use the countries. I mean, you can, but you can't customize the jersey at all. Another thing with the jerseys is that I think there should be more variations to the jerseys, like how they're designed, and I think that they need more color options. I don't like the idea that they only give you a few couple presets of colors. I literally think they should just give you the color wheel like you would in a program like Photoshop, where you literally can scroll between as many different shades of that color as you want and get the perfect, blend together. Because sometimes you can't get the perfect shade that really blends in together with everything else, and it doesn't work so much. Another thing is you should have the ability to name your AI. I don't like the fact that they just give them random names. I think it would be really cool that, say you're a team that's, Leaf fans. It'd be cool to have all your other free AI. Like you can literally pick the position and say, okay, here's the name of this guy. So that way, you're not just getting some completely random names like Gurndeep Johnson, like something stupid like that. There shouldn't be momentum or comebacks in the game. And the reason I say that is most people would be like, oh, why not? Like, it's not fair if a team's dominating. And, in real hockey, there are comebacks. Yes, but this isn't real hockey. This is simulated hockey. This is hockey that is played with controllers, not real people. At the end of the day, that comes down to skill. It shouldn't come down to, anything else. It really does feel like sometimes if you're leading a game going into the third period, all of a sudden bounces start going the other way around. And it gets to the point where you can almost feel like the game itself is trying to give the other team that's losing a chance to get back in the game, which shouldn't be happening. If they're losing based on skill, they should still be losing based on skill. You should be able to see in the dressing room when you're waiting for your team to finish a game. You should be able to actually see the score as it's going on in real time. It'd be kind of nice. All it shows you is how much time's elapsed at this point, and that means absolutely nothing because games can take any variation of time. I think it would be nice at the very least to show how many goals are being scored on what side because it updates it on Xbox Live. What's so hard about them putting a system? I mean, literally, all they got to do is just put two numbers above the logos that's already on there. It's not that big a deal. Uh, Another thing, and this is a different idea that I had. This is a an idea that's come from me. This isn't a simple change. This is something that I've thought about and I've wanted ever since NHL 11 came out. Because for those who remember NHL 10, you could play 5 games at once with your club. And once 11 came around, I mean, the reason they did that in the first place was because teams were playing 2v2s all the time. So you'd have 5 games going on constantly, and it would just be 2v2, and they'd just glitch the heck out of it, and they'd be getting 5 wins every half an hour. So the idea I had, because me personally, I run a community, we have 3 teams. We have like 30, 40 people that are playing. And it's kind of annoying if guys want to leave or they want to go to the other clubs, but they have to deal with the stupid 24-hour rule. I think there should be something called what I'm going to call club linking. And what that is that you can literally put a tag next to your club, and if that tag falls in together with a different club, like say, like my community is called Critical Strike, I should be able to go through as the guy who owns that tag if you put it on, and be able to see if a team puts that tag on, I should be able to accept them or not. And if they do that, that team can literally at any point members can jump between all those teams without any penalty, without having to wait, without having to go through the process. They can literally just move without any, hassle to it. The reason being is, there are a lot of teams that have like 20, 25 guys. It's not fair if, there's say 8 people on and you can only play and it's all on one team, and there's another team that's only got 3 people online. You could ship those other 2 guys over so that they can play, so that they don't have to be sitting there doing nothing or just playing randoms in lobbies, in which it isn't nearly as fun. So I think with an idea like club linking, it will allow people to be able to have larger groups and not have to worry about the penalties that come with it. The last thing is something that I feel like in OTP and EASHL is that there is such a common, especially in NHL 12. It's not so bad now, but there was a point where human goaltenders, whenever you were playing 6v6, or at least in the case of any game where it was human goalies, that they would try to challenge people to fights all the time because they knew that they could get that guy in the box, but they wouldn't go in the box. The goalie wouldn't go. And I know in real hockey the goalie doesn't sit in the box, but I think in this case, if a goalie challenges somebody to a fight, they should be sitting in the box for 5 minutes, and once those 5 minutes are up, the next whistle that goes off, they're back in the net. So it just goes to an AI goalie for however amount of time. Because it's not fair that the goalie can challenge guys to fights, and then all of a sudden, somebody else, that guy's gone off, but the goalie still gets to sit there. So literally, he could take out the whole team if he really wanted to. Obviously, this is a pretty easy solution by just not, taking the fights, but it's still something that would just avoid that situation to begin with. So that's it for EASHL and OTP. I'm going to move on to Hockey Ultimate Team now. This is the other bit that I'm really into, and a lot of people are going to have the same complaints with this. First off, there need to be better rare players or a better consistency of what rare players are. Rare players, EA Sports, I don't know if you guys know this, but rare players are not crappy 77 overall guys from the European leagues. Guys who are 40 years old and have not played in the NHL in 10 years are not considered rares. As far as I'm concerned, rare players in Hockey Ultimate Team should be only the top 5 players on the team. And that would include their starting goalie. The starting goalie for any team should always be should always be considered a rare. But the idea that you get a guy who's a third liner on a really crappy team like Columbus and he ends up getting a rare card trait just because, it doesn't make any sense. Like 75% of the NHL players are considered rare cards, and most of them are not remotely considered rare because most of the time you don't even know who they are unless you're a fan of that very team. Speaking of rare players, there should be a better ratio of them in packs because most people can agree with me that most of the rares in packs, when they tell you that 3 or 4 rares are guaranteed, and they say, oh, well, one player is guaranteed to be one of the rares, that means that only one player is going to be that rare, and the other 3 are going to be boosts and contract cards, most of them that you're never going to use because boosts, which I'll get into later, are useless. There should be more pack options. I think at one point there used to be packs that were solely consumables and solely players. There really should be packs that are specific to players. There should even be league specific packs. Like there should be only NHL guys or only AHL guys or only Elite Sarian guys. Like, so if you're trying to get a collection going, you can go to that. Um Speaking one last thing with packs is that the special, like 2-day special packs, like whenever they have a holiday pack or something, they should be containing something good considering how expensive they are. I've spent money on those packs and they've given me nothing. And they're 40 cards, 10 rares, and none of them are any bit useful. If you're going to have a special pack and advertise it like it's going to be this huge thing, like people should be getting it, then at least give them an incentive to do it. There should be a pack that would say one guaranteed team of the week card or something like that. I know it would decrease the value of some cards, but I mean, if it costs that much for a pack and it doesn't give you anything, like that's not fair. They should be raising the ratio of the cards that are really high up there. So you should be able to get a Zetterberg or a I don't know, an Eric Stahl or something like that. You should be able to get those higher end players without going up into the Crosbys and Ovechkins and the really high players that are difficult to get. But for a special pack, like one that you're advertising as being this big thing, you gotta give something back for it because people are not getting anything for them. Now, I mentioned Boost a second ago. The reason is because when they came out with Hockey Ultimate Team last year, Boost were permanent. Now you need duration cards to keep them on, and there's no permanent duration. So what I think is that depending on the age of the player, there should be a permanent boost slot so that there are boosts that you can apply and they stay permanently, and then there should be another section for boosts that are only like game wise or like with the duration cards. But like it defeats the purpose of having the rookie cards because the rookies, you know, they have like a potential for 10 cards, but the problem is if those 10 cards go away in 5 games, what use was it? You've just wasted so many cards on them. Especially because if they go away, like you're immediately going to put that guy on back on the bench because he's going to be useless because he's going to be like a low 70s guy. Like Nail Yakupov, who is the first overall pick this year, is only a 74 overall, and you can't raise him so can he become your big guy. I mean, that makes no sense. What's the point of having those rookie cards if they can't stay up to an NHL level where you want them to be? So I think in the idea, like in the case of Yakupov, who's 74 overall, put him 3 to 4 permanent boosts. And after that, you deal with whatever you want. And then say a guy like, I don't know, let's say, Phil Kessel. He's still got a couple years left in him, so give him 2. And then somebody like who's already up there in age, like Teemu Solani, give him 1. You know, there should be ways that you can actually make your players useful because at this point I don't play like anytime I get a training card, I sell them because there's no reason to have them because they don't last. You know, my guys, the only guy that's been pumped up are guys that are given captaincy cards. That's it. None of them else have anything else. Now, one last thing with packs, I forgot to leave this one in, but I think that there should be an easier way to get packs than just, collecting a lot, like playing like 10 games just to get enough pucks to get one gold pack. I think with tournaments, you can give this to your advantage. For offline tournaments, have a free silver pack if you win them. And if you win an online tournament, which is really difficult because winning 4 straight games is never easy because the matchmaking again is broken, you should get a gold pack if you win an online tournament. And it's not killing that much. I mean, you're not going to get a lot of, like in offline tournaments too. Like silver packs are never anything good really. Like it's one rare and it's never anything good. And with gold packs, like it's really hard to earn them. I mean, you actually have to play the game well and you have to play it well for 4 games to get to that point. So I think to offer an incentive for people to keep playing tournaments instead of just random games all the time, it gives them something to work for. And it's a fair prize because the puck bonuses they give you is nowhere near enough. Especially in online tournaments, they should be giving you so much more for winning them because they're very difficult to do. The last thing is a pretty simple fix. If a backup goalie does not play, he shouldn't be getting a game taken off his contract. It's because the backup goalie spot is only used for pretty much junior goalies because you really like. Oh, you know what? Honestly, I wouldn't even put backup goalies in because unless you have a Marc Andre Fleury and a Mika Kiprusoff or something like that, like two really high end goalies, there should be no reason why you would have a backup because you know which guy you want. Like he's going to be your guy. There's no reason to have a backup. Like not very many people. If I don't even know anybody that changes goalies in their game because it's pointless. You're putting a less overall guy in there. It's not the same situation in real hockey where there could be a momentum shift because of it. Now, with the new mode they put in this year in GM Connected, I have one simple fix for NHL 14. Don't put GM Connected in the game. It's terrible. It was a bad idea to begin with. It's a very, very clunky menu. I'm not even going to try to, put together a list and say, here, you can fix this, fix that. The menu's laggy, so fix that. No, it was just a bad idea. If you want to put a league together, just have it a versus league. Don't put it into GM because we have fantasy pools for that. It was a terrible idea. I was very, very skeptical of it when it first came out, and we tried playing it as a community for like a week, and nobody liked it. It was terrible. So just don't. Offline GM, on the other hand, you can do a little bit better with, and you can keep that there because it works. Now, a couple fixes you can do is there needs to be smarter trades. The problem that I had when I played it for the little amount of time that I did is that the only trades that I was really ever offered were for draft picks. So I literally, at the start of I literally would have to just turn off draft picks. I would not want to trade draft picks because every trade would only be for my draft picks. I want, I want to get rid of players. I want to trade players for players, and the second I turned off draft picks, I almost never got trade offers. And if they were completely pointless offers. There should be fatigue and hot and cold stats on guys because, obviously with goaltenders, they will be fatigued over time. There is a reason why backup goalies do play a lot in the NHL because goalies cannot play 82 games in a season without any breaks at all. And hot and cold stats, like, the biggest example for as a Leaf fan was Nazem Kadri this year. Like this guy was on fire for a large portion of time. Are you telling me that he would stay at the really low overall that he had when he came into this season? No, you would pump him up because he's doing so well at that point. And then if he starts coming off, then you have a cold streak. Same deal with just anybody else. Like if there are a first line winger who should be scoring, 30, 40 goals a season and he hasn't scored a goal in like 10 games, he should be on a cold streak so his stats suck a little bit. The old NHL games used to do that. I don't know why they took that away. It was a good idea and it made sense. Guys who you were doing really well with, you could keep going to. There should be no trade clauses in the contracts. Such a basic thing in hockey. Like, why aren't those in there? It would make it more interesting because if you want to give those guys those incentives, now you have to figure out if he wants to do it. Now, you would have the option if you want to waive it, but most of the time he wouldn't. It would depend if you're. Usually, it would be if your team's losing a lot or if the guy's like about to retire, that kind of thing. You can put that in there. And speaking of trades, players should also be able to demand trades because, in real hockey, there are guys who are always unhappy with how things are going. So you do that, you offer that to them and it brings more in there. It's something that's so basic. Like all you have to do is just pump it in and just say, so and so wants a trade. That's it. And you can obviously just say no because, really, if it gets too excessive, you can even turn the option off or something like that if they want to put that in there. Last but not least, it's something that's a lot of games do when they have a dynasty mode or something like that along the lines of being a general manager. You should be able to hire and fire coaches based on how you want the game to be played. It's like how Hockey Ultimate Team has coach cards, so they go to certain statistics. So you should be able to hire a coach, say if you want faster skaters or if you want guys to be a little better on the checking areas or you want a coach that is really good with goaltenders or that kind of stuff, or even separate it so there is a coach and a goaltending coach and a shooting coach, or I don't know what the gist of coaches are, but same deal. And with the medical staff too, so maybe you spend a little more money to get a guy so your guys heal maybe half a week faster, something like that. Something that just adds a little bit more depth into it. Now we start getting onto the bulk of things. We're going to get through a couple things first before we get into gameplay and the most important part, the AI. The first bit I'm going to go through is the presentation, and it's only a couple small things. Take away the towels during playoff hockey. We play EASHL playoffs every year, and because the towels they fly over the boards. If the puck goes behind our net, you can't see where the hell it is. You have to guess. It's a real disadvantage playing defense. Just take that away. If you want to do it on the sides, perfect, but don't do it on the bottom end where we really need to be able to see the play. There should be four referees on the ice, or at the very least two, because there isn't one referee in hockey. There's at least a couple. And if you really want to, have hit detection with them, but that might be pushing it because you could get some really weird bounces and some really unfair stuff. But I mean, have it to the point that it looks like a little more realistic. Like, there are two referees and two linesmen in real hockey. At the very least, like I said, have at least two referees. And the other thing is, have a little cutscene at the end of periods or at the beginning of periods where it's the Zamboni driving through. Just to add a little bit of extra, like, make it seem like hockey again, because there are Zambonis in hockey, and I think, EA's forgotten that. They used to have it always playing in the background during intermissions. Like, why did that go away? And the other thing before I get on to gameplay is a simple bug fix, and it's something that's ailed me all the time. Whenever I finish a game, the game will freeze. It doesn't happen all the time, but it happens a lot. Just the fact that it happens more than once is never a good thing. So just fix that. So with gameplay now, people are probably already writing the list themselves who already know this game. There needs to be a lot less fluke goals. A lot of goals that just are random shots in the net goes through the legs of the goalie. I know it happens sometimes in the NHL, but it happens way, way too often in this game. Like, the most random shots get in the net. It makes no sense. Like, you could literally spend an entire game having five amazing chances that in a real hockey game would likely have resulted in half of them being in the back of the net, and none of them go in. But the one goal that just goes from the blue line and just happens to get through everything and goes in the net, no, doesn't make any sense. The penalty calls need to be better. The two specific calls that I have a problem with is interference, because apparently they're non-existent now, and unsportsmanlike, because people can challenge guys to fights in the middle of the ice and not get called for it. That's interference at the same time, but that call used to be unsportsmanlike, and the second you try to challenge somebody to a fight, didn't matter where you were, you would get called up. With penalties as well, after the whistle, they took away roughing calls happening afterwards, where a guy was hitting, a player too much, or he was going after the goalie. They used to put that in there so guys just weren't screwing around for the after the whistle, and I don't like the fact that it's not there anymore. So it should come back in. The big thing with interference too, I forgot to mention, is that there's the whole new engine now where you can literally just run into somebody and there's contact. People use this as a way to get guys out of the play and not take a penalty for it. So I think you need to kind of step up an interference call with that type of play, especially if the guy gets knocked down to a knee, because it happens every once in a while where a guy literally gets knocked out of position. And it's completely unfair because, you know, in real hockey, that would be interference because it is contact. So you have to be able to call that. There shouldn't be the impossible sharp turns that happen just relentlessly in this game. You know, in NHL 12, guys would fall on their asses every time they try to go too sharp and they didn't have the agility to cover for it. Nobody can make that many really, really quick sharp turns like everybody can in this game. Now, I'm not going to the lines of the rainbow turns that, NHL 13 is plagued with, where your turn takes you all the way around the ice. It takes forever to make that proper turn. I don't mean that, but I mean you shouldn't be turning on a dime like your turns are in rear wheel drive. Like for example, forklifts compared to cars, forklifts can turn 360 degrees like it's nothing, and that's kind of the same deal. Where in this game, compared to real skaters, they can turn around at any speed like it's absolutely nothing, and just tweak it a little bit so you can't go that sharp. The hit detection and the physics really need to be fixed as well. The fact that you can line up a guy and be perfectly in front of him, and then just out of the blue, for some reason, he just bounces off of you, and you look like an idiot as you just whiff by him. As well as with the physics, like the fact that a guy can have almost no momentum going into it and just kind of push you, and you'll go flying across the ice, compared to you running at a guy. Never mind if it's charging or not, but you literally running across the ice at a guy at full speed. Your checking's really high overall, and it literally just kind of makes him go, ugh, and like just leans over, and that's about it. you need to get the idea what momentum really is. A fix that I got really ticked off with when I used to play is that when I try to dive to block a shot, sometimes it would just do a really stupid stand up. Like you put your legs together and you have your arms out just trying to block the shot that way. I want to dive. And when I use that animation, I want the dive. Like I don't want this stupid stand up. If you want to do that, tie it to the shot block button. But when I want to dive, because that's taking away passes, that stand up pretty much almost guarantees a goal is about to go in the net because you're not going to block that shot. There's no way. And last but not least is in the offensive zone, the defense is really good at tying up, especially the AI. It's really easy for them to tie you up, and it's almost impossible for you to get out of it. And it really gets to the point that when the puck's long out of your zone, they're still tying you up, and you're way out of the play. It's really unfair that way, because that would almost be considered interference at that point because the puck is no longer in the offensive zone, and you're not even usually the one touching the puck either. Now, last but not least, we have the AI, and it is something that I'm probably going to lose my shit over a little bit because there are so many problems with it. I've only got a list of 8 at this point, but they are 8 ridiculous fixes that need to be made. Like, need to be made. I would rather them not change a thing about the game as long as they were, or not add anything, as long as they would fix all these things that I'm about to list. The biggest and most important problem that the AI have is that they have no recognition that there is a breakout about to happen. Because anyone who plays OTP, EASHL, or anything else where they're taking care of a forward, the AI defensemen will constantly just pass around each other and not recognize the fact that you guys are open up front and you should be trying to put the puck at the net. Instead, they'll literally just play, catch with each other for 5 or 6 passes until you call for it, and then you lose the puck because you couldn't be patient with them anymore. And that is the dumbest thing that I've ever seen an AI do, and I've played 4 years of NHL games. That's the dumbest thing that I've ever seen AI do, where they literally will just pass back and forth to each other for no apparent reason. They also need to stop ignoring the puck, particularly on icings and when the puck is right around their net. They will literally skate away from it. Are you telling me that in a realistic game, that a defenseman whose sole job is to keep the puck away from the net does not go for the puck when it's in front of the net? Yeah, that's realistic. They also have a tendency of standing still when, or just staring at an opposing player when he's coming right at them. They do not poke the puck away. They will only hit the guy if he tries to take a shot. It makes no sense that defensemen do not attack the opposing player. So many goals get scored on, especially by breakaway, because they literally just do not try to skate and they'll let the guy go right by them. They'll literally, if they're both in front of each other, they'll literally move to the inside so the guy can go on the outside and have a good shot. Doesn't make any sense. Another thing with the AI is that if they don't poke and they don't hit, why do you lose the puck all the time just because the puck comes in their general vicinity? It's what we call the auto steal, where you literally, just because it crosses into their path, it automatically goes on their stick. I know in a sense that can happen in hockey where, if they get too close to the guy, it might hit their stick and they lose possession. But I mean, if they're not going to poke it though and they're not going to hit, like in this game in particular, they shouldn't be getting the puck for it then. It doesn't make any sense that literally by standing still they can get the puck. No one should ever be getting anything from not working for it. The other 4 things are about the goaltenders, and these are all just stupid little things that they don't do and I don't understand. Excuse me, that they don't understand. The first and the most important thing is that stupid sit down animation where literally they'll try to make a save and fall on their ass, and then they won't make a save attempt until they get back up. We have been scored so many goals on because of that stupid animation. And especially even as a human goaltender, that animation comes up for no apparent reason. That animation does not ever have a use because it always happens on shots that have no purpose in being in a desperation animation for. They're simple shots, but because the game just assumes, okay, let's try to make this a little more interesting, they do that animation. Take that animation right the hell out. It shouldn't be in the game. They also have no idea how to cover a puck. How many goals have been scored on from guys just poking the puck when the puck's in between their legs. Like any goalie, and even too with referees, like they should be calling for faceoffs if the puck's in between their legs and it's not going anywhere. Like they should be calling. It doesn't matter whether he has full control of it. The fact that it's in between his legs, like that's an automatic whistle at that point. So if they can't cover up the puck, there should at least be a whistle being called. They don't play the puck, or actually no, I should rephrase that. They try to play the puck, but they play them at the worst times. They'll go behind the net with the opposition with like within like 10 feet of them. They'll lose it, and then now they have to rush back into the net, and a lot of the times, that causes goals. They also have a tendency of like running out to play the puck when the opposition is close as well. If you really think that your AI is that smart, like shouldn't they recognize that if an opposing forward is rushing at them and they go and grab the puck, like their only idea should just be to cover it and get the face off, or at the very least, just throw it up the boards quickly just so it gets away from them. Instead, they'll try to throw it behind the net with a little cheeky pass. It'll probably get stuck on the boards, and then you lose possession of the puck for no apparent reason. It's nothing you can control. It's ridiculous. The final thing with goaltenders is that unless we call for it, they should never be letting the puck out. There have been so many occasions where literally we'll just be they'll cover the puck and we'll stop because we're assuming it's a face-off. Next thing we know, they throw it out, and that catches you off guard. And half the time they throw it right at an opposing player, and it ends up in the back of our net. All these things with AI, they are stuff that causes people to lose games, and it's completely out of their control. The game should never be lost from an outside source. If a team loses a game, it should be because they simply did not, or they were not the better team. It should not be because of fluke goals. It should not be because of no penalties being called when they should have. It should not be because, you're whiffing by hits. And it should definitely not be because the AI is completely incompetent and incapable of even playing at the same level of hockey that Timbits do. And we're talking 6-year-old kids. So EA Sports, please look at this list, and at the very least, fix the gameplay and AI fixes that I'm asking for. I don't care so much about the other stuff, but please, for the love of God, make the game playable and make the game fair. Because for people who do not choose to use the little cheap stuff, the glitches, and any other thing that takes advantage of the game because it is a broken game, they should be rewarded for playing real hockey and not for playing like a complete and total douchebag.